Hello everyone, this is Marathon Hurtler here, and welcome back to some more Final Fantasy VIII. Last time we started our SeeD exam, and things were going pretty well until Cypher decided to go rogue and take off on his own towards the communication tower, and we followed him all the way up here, and we met up with a messenger named Selphie, who apparently has a very important message for our squad leader, so let's go ahead and see if we can try to catch up with him. Now, one thing you do want to make sure you do before you go up to this elevator is make sure you have all your GF junction, of course, but one thing you want to make sure you have junction all of your, on at least one of your characters is the draw ability. I have it on all three just because I don't use the GF command, but at the very least have it on one character. So with all that said, let's go ahead and take the lift up. Hopefully Cypher's up there. I mean, there's really nowhere else he can be because, I mean, assuming this is all we can see down here, he's clearly not down here, so let's see if we can catch up with him then. Then again, he could just not be up here either, apparently. I don't know exactly where he's supposed to be, but he doesn't seem to be here right now. But we do have two people up here, Biggs and Wedge, two mainstays in the Final Fantasy series. I'd say out of all the Biggs and Wedges that we've had in this series, these two might be my favorite. I know Final Fantasy VII had the two as members of Avalanche, but I don't know, maybe it's just because you see them you see these two guys more often throughout the game, and I think they're a little bit funnier maybe, or I think they are funnier, but that's probably why I see them as being my favorites, personally. But yeah, we will be seeing these guys a couple times in the game, and I think they're kind of the comic relief, more or less, in Final Fantasy VIII. The game doesn't have a whole lot of comic relief, but they do provide some comic relief. Now, one thing, and what I'm now going to start calling Marathon Hurdler's random observations of the day, if you notice, when we got up to the top floor here, as soon as we got up here, Squall was just kind of looking around as if he was confused. Which is, in a sense, cool. I like that they have the characters reacting to what's going on in the cutscene as opposed to just kind of standing there. But nothing had actually happened yet. And if you see Zell itself, you wait until right before the cutscene starts, before they start kind of looking around confused. But as soon as you get to the top of the elevator, Squall just looks like, huh? What's going on here? He looks really confused, and I don't quite get that. The other thing I find amusing is the fact that Selphie just kind of looks around so calmly. She just kind of looks back and forth really quickly, whereas everyone else gets far more animated. But yeah, apparently we didn't get here in time, and Galbadia was able to get this satellite running, I guess. I don't really know why they were after this satellite or why it's important, but whatever their goal was, I guess they accomplished it. So congrats, I guess. Maybe? I don't know. Anyway, whatever they're up to, we gotta stop them. That's what we're here to do, right? That's what we're... Exactly. What do you think you're doing? I really want to know what they think they're doing here. You don't get to ask the questions. We're asking the questions here. You don't want to know what happened to those soldiers. Yeah, it's not looking too good for you, Biggs. Don't know where Wedge is, but it's not looking too good for you. Yeah, you might just want to take off. Oh, and there's Cypher. Now, a second random observation here. I don't quite know where Cypher was supposed to be. It seemed like he headed upstairs already, but apparently he never did, and we just missed him. I wonder what would have happened if we would have run into him down there. Maybe we wouldn't have come up here. We wouldn't be taking on, I guess, Biggs right now to shut down this communication tower. Now, Biggs is a pretty easy boss. He's pretty straightforward. He has a new spell here, which you don't really need, but I figure I'll start, occasionally drawing these spells to at least show you what the bosses have. And he does have the basic elemental spells and Asuna, which is the same as Asuna in any other game. It cures every status ailment that you can have on you. It's an okay spell. I never really use it just because remedies are pretty easy to buy, and for the most part, you're smart. You never deal with status ailments that much. But one thing you do want to do is draw a couple of thunder spells. So just like in the Fire Cavern, probably just do 1 round per person, have them draw some thunder spells, and then move on from there. It's not going to be useful in this battle, but it will be useful in the somewhat near future. So after that, there's really not a whole lot else to do. Hopefully I didn't mention this in the last episode, but if you didn't, you might want to make sure you have your cure spells at least somewhat distributed so that if anyone needs healing, then you can handle that pretty quickly. But beyond that, this is basically the same as any fight against an elite soldier. Big just happens to have way more HP than your normal elite soldier. So, but again, nothing we can't handle. And after you've done a certain amount of damage to them, and maybe it's damage. I don't know if time is a fact here, or if it's a certain amount of time that you have to wait. Wedge will show up, and yeah, now you get to fight both of them. What I would recommend you do, though, is that you just continue to focus on Biggs, since you've already done so much damage to him. But one thing you could do if you want is you could draw some more cure spells, and I'm going to go ahead and draw a couple of extra cure spells just in case. Cures are pretty easy to get, but you know, since we don't really fight, I'm not going to be fighting too many random battles. I figure might as well try to draw a couple cure spells whenever I can. So yeah, I'm just going to kind of alternate and have each person draw cure spells while I have the other 2 attack. And this way we should be pretty set on cure spells for the majority of the rest of the game. So yeah, nothing too serious about this boss battle. It just takes a little while to finish these guys off. Now, one thing you do want to do is if your health starts to get a little bit low, you want to make sure... I should have paid attention there. But, I guess you didn't really have an opportunity to do that, but you want to make sure you keep your health above around 200. And the reason for that is this guy right here, our new enemy, Alver. And he also has the cure spell, but one thing he has, another thing he has is the Siren GF. So unlike with Crit, most of the GFs you're going to get in the game, or at least several of the GFs we're going to get for the foreseeable future, have to be drawn from the enemy. So if you don't draw them, they're gone, and you don't have another chance to get them, at least until the end of the game. So yeah, you want to make sure you pick that up here. And Siren has some very useful abilities on top of that, so you want to make sure you pick her up. The other spell that Alver has, which I might get to in a second here, is the double spell. And you can draw that if you want. I really don't see that as being particularly necessary, but you might be interested in trying to cast it on yourself. But in this case, I was not able to. It actually brings me to another game mechanic. So the way the draw system works is the amount of spells you get is based on your magic stat relative to the enemy's magic stat, I believe, is what it is. And so, if your magic stat is really low relative to your enemy, there's a chance that you won't be able to draw the spell at all. And this particularly happens when you're dealing with spells that are... See, oh, nice, I was able to get stuff to break there. But but if you have a spell that's pretty powerful, it's very likely that you could fail to draw stuff, especially if you're magic stuff. Now, what I just did with Selfie there is I used her Limit Break, and Selfie's Limit Break is a slot, and basically the way it works is you can, if you get it, you basically do a random spell in a number of times, and you can choose to do it over and over again until you find a spell that you want. And in this case, I got a pretty good spell with her, and the spell I got was Aura, and she 2 times, so she casts it 2 times. And the way the Aura spell works is it allows your characters to get limit breaks even when their health isn't in critical condition. And so as you can imagine, it's a pretty powerful spell. And so I guess I'm going to be explaining all the limit breaks here, but the way Zell's Limit Break works is similar to the blitzes from Final Fantasy 6 or 7, but basically with Zell, you have a limited amount of time, and you have commands for each of his, different attacks he can do. So what I was doing there is I had Booyah and Punch Rust, and if I chose different attacks, I guess I'll explain that as I go here. So what's going on is I have a fixed amount of time in the right corner, and then I have 2 attacks that I can do. Based on the attack that I do, it determines the next set of attacks that I get. And if you do the attacks in a particular order, you can do what is called a finishing move, which is a more powerful attack, basically. But one little glitch that you can take advantage in this game of with the Limit Breaks, which I am taking advantage of here, is if you do Punch Rush and then Booyah, it sends you back and forth in an infinite loop. So you just go back and forth and you can do the same 2 attacks over and over again. And so you can basically do attacks indefinitely without any end. And so on a per second basis, that's actually going to be more efficient than trying to get a finishing move where you may leave like 5 or 6 seconds left on the clock. So that's one way to do that. The way that Squall's Limit Break works is basically just a string of attacks, but as you saw with the little bar at the bottom there, every time the little bar hits the square, you want to hit the R1 button, and it's just like its normal attacks where if you time it right, you get an automatic critical hit. The other thing that you saw there was what is called a finishing move. So randomly, once Squall is done doing his sequence of attacks, he will do a conditional attack called the finishing move. In this case, he did Rough Divide, which was the move that we saw in the opening intro when he was countering Cypher after Cypher cut his face. There are 4 finishing moves in the game, and the way you get additional finishing moves, right now we only have Rough Divide, but the way you get additional finishing moves is by upgrading his weapon, which I will explain later when that comes about. But that's kind of the basics behind at least their Limit Breaks, and hopefully that makes sense. And for the most part, we won't be using Limit Breaks that much, at least early on in the game, because we don't have access to the Aura spell. But later on, Limit Breaks really become the primary way you do damage. Magic is really only useful in my mind in really the first 2 areas. Once you get past this area, I almost never use magic just because it's really not that powerful relative to the damage you can do for physical attacks. And for the most part, and even the magic attacks that are useful tend to be more useful for junctions to your stats. So it just kind of defeats the whole purpose of having the magic system there. But for the most part, I kind of went off on a long side tangent about Limit Breaks there. But this boss fight is pretty straightforward, just like the last one. The only thing you have to worry about is the Storm Breath attack, which is why I was recommending to keep your health above 200 if possible, because as you can see, it does about 150 damage per person, which if you're letting your health hang around too low, would leave you in a dangerous position to possibly be either killed by Storm Breath itself or by any follow-up attack that Alver might use on you. But beyond that, it's a pretty straightforward boss fight. Just keep yourself healed and attack with your regular physical attacks. If you have some extra magic spell charges, you can use those. But what I would recommend is that you don't use your thunder spells that you drew just a second ago, because we are going to want to use those in the next battle. So, alright, well, that's that. It was a little bit easier just because I was able to use the Limit Breaks to do some extra damage, but he had the Cure spell as a spell we could draw from him, so this really wasn't going to be a difficult battle. It was just going to be a matter of how long it was going to take to finish him off. So you definitely don't need to use Aura. I just used that because I got lucky and I kind of wanted to keep this battle moving. So nice. Let's see, we get 2 elixirs and we get some nice stuff there. But more importantly, we get 14 AP, which means that we've learned the card ability and the strength junction ability. The card ability is more important because we will be using that in the very near future to do a little bit of AP grinding, but we'll talk about that in just a second. Right now, we need to focus on whatever this message is we are about to get. So, let's let's get this message. This must be an important one if we've gone all this way just to deliver it. And withdrawing is a pretty important order. It takes priority, so we got to get out of here. We don't want to miss. We don't want to miss the boat. We got to make sure we get. It's across the ocean. I mean, there's no way we're going to be able to swim across. So we got to get out of here. I also like how they use military time. That's a nice little touch. You never really see military time used in a lot of games, so it's kind of cool that they use it here. Growing up, I was always used to using military time. My dad was an army guy, so yeah, I got used to reading military time more than I got used to dealing with normal time. So yeah, it's always interesting to see that in a game. But yeah, we got 30 minutes to get out of here, and so yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and get out of here then. So should be pretty straightforward on the way back. You know, nothing too difficult. We're just gonna run from any battles, and oh hey, Biggs is still alive. Well, he couldn't be comedic relief the rest of the game if he died. So, well, that's not very funny. Tell me a better joke, funny man. Come on. Huh. I wonder what those well, unfortunately, you can still run into random battles inside of here, but one thing that you can notice if you look at the timer in the upper left is that time continues to run even if you run into a battle or in the menus or whatever. So you definitely want to avoid running into random battles as much as possible. Unfortunately, I could not avoid that one, so that's actually going to be a bit of a problem, because the last part of your SeeD assessment, and I have no idea why this is part of it, is how quickly you're able to get back. And so to get maximum points, you got to get back within 5 minutes, but that random encounter all but steals that there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. So, oh well. Anyway, let's go ahead and, well, I guess I missed the moment to be dramatic there, but yeah, we gotta fight. This was the guy that, or this is the thing that Big sent after us, and so we gotta deal with it. It's not quite as threatening as it looks. All you really gotta do, this is why I had you draw Thunder spells earlier. We're just gonna cast Thunder on it a bunch of times, and we'll be good to go. This attack is somewhat powerful, but as you can see, like, none of these attacks are very powerful though. I mean, Alver was doing way more damage than this guy, so you should be fine. If your health gets really low, go ahead and heal, but you probably won't need to do so. Just keep casting Thunder on it. One other thing that I did, and I should have mentioned this, between episodes, I went back into the config menu and I changed my cursor to memory instead of default. And even though I'm still, as you can see, I'm still kind of getting used to it, but you definitely want to do that, because there are going to be points in the game where we're going to be drawing, and you're not going to want to have to constantly be navigating the menu. It's way easier just to hold down the X button when you're drawing spells moving forward. So, or when you're, like in this battle, when you're doing just the same thing over and over again, it's just way easier to do it that way. So, alright. Now what happens is, once you've done a certain amount of damage to him, he falls down, and then you can run. Now, if you are very powerful, for instance, if you did the Cypher, not really side quest, but the power-up thing that I mentioned before, you could, and you had leveled up Quetzalcoatl, you know, to the max there. One thing that you could do is you could actually defeat that guy by using Quetzalcoatl on him several times, and you get like 50 AP and you get a bunch of points for your SeeD exam, but we haven't done that, and it's just not really worth the effort to do so. Now on this screen, you want to hold the left on the directional pad before the screen pops back up, because as you can see, he jumps right after you, and if you aren't holding left, he will jump out at you and you have to fight him again. Now on this screen, what you want to do is you want to make sure you walk all the way down. If you don't, he will stun you with like some kind of shock wave or something, and once again, you'll have to fight him. On this screen, pretty straightforward. You just run. At some point, he's going to jump down, and there he is. And he's just going to chase us, but again, not really a big deal. This screen is a little bit trickier. So if you see, he's kind of running behind us there. He's going to jump in a second here. And now he's going to come back at us the other way. And then he's going to come back, and then we're just going to, darn it. Okay. So unfortunately, I didn't do that well, and I'm sure you heard I'm sure you're watching this thinking I'm an idiot. But unfortunately, in my recording, there's a delay on the sound, so I actually can't hear what's going on. So I was trying to time that with my, based on my own memory, but I couldn't do it in time. So yeah, this is what happens when you screw that up. You gotta fight him again. Not a big deal, and I'm not gonna get full points anyway, but in theory, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to be able to run back and forth and just avoid having to fight him again. Like I said, I screwed it up. I'm not gonna re-record for something that silly, but that does actually bring me to a random point that I'd like to go ahead and ask you guys as my viewers here. If anyone does use the Elgato Game Capture HD, which I currently use for my recording, if you know of a way to kind of avoid that delay in your recording as in the sound that you get on your screen as you're recording, I would certainly like to know, because I've actually had to mute the sound on my recording because it plays back stuff that I said 5-10 seconds after I've done it, which I suppose makes sense, but it's very inconvenient for me because it just throws off my timing, so it's actually easier for me to mute it. But in a situation like this where I actually needed to rely on the sound cue to be able to understand what was going on, it messes me up. But again, not a big deal, just a slight little fail there. Now on this screen, you do want to talk to the dog as you're running by him, and he'll run away and you get some points for that, or if you don't do it, you lose points or something like that. But basically you wanna do that. So on this screen, there's really nothing to do. We're just gonna apparently stand here and watch this guy come after us, and then we're gonna run away. Once you get to that point, the game runs away for you, and this is really nothing more than just a reason to show off another little tech demo, which this entire area just seems to be one massive tech demo. But yeah, now you're gonna keep running here, and at this point, as you can see, all these guys are coming out and running. But if you run into the cafe either on this screen or the previous screen, you lose like a bunch of points. So just keep running and you'll be fine. And at this point, we are good to go. So once the timer is out, that's the time you get for your exam. I was nowhere close to the 25-minute mark because I really botched the bridge scene there. But again, I'm really not worried about my SeeD rank. We're going to have way more than enough money to do what we need to do throughout the game. So yeah, this is just not really a big deal at all. But now we do get to enjoy this cutscene. Now, I don't know, I have no idea how Squall ended up that far behind Zell and Selkie. Maybe, then again, Zell was cited for speeding earlier, so Zell just must be that fast. And I don't know about Selkie. Maybe she's got so much energy, she was chasing us around at the quad. Maybe that's why she's so fast. But luckily, Kisses is here to save the day, and I mean, you may be able to do a lot with a giant robot, but there's no way you're going to beat a massive machine gun. I think that's the rule here. Or that's the lesson we all got here. When in doubt, massive machine gun, game over. But yeah, I think this whole mission was basically just a reason to show off just how powerful the graphics are in Final Fantasy VIII. And I can understand why they would do that. It was such a massive jump from Final Fantasy VII that why not show it off, right? But I don't think, and someone correct me if I'm wrong here, I don't think you really see that many cutscenes in a short time as you do in this area here, because we had the introduction scene, we had the scene at the communications tower, and then we had the very brief scene with the XT, whatever his serial name is, destroying the car. And then finally we had the epic scene with Squall running away. So That's 4 in about the time span of like an hour. So I think that's the highest rate at which you're going to see FMVs throughout the game here. But apparently Cypher's already trying to throw us under the bus. Hopefully none of the instructors are listening, because I don't want to fail my SeeD exam because Cypher was talking trash about us. But apparently Kisa thought we did a good job, so that makes me feel a little bit better. Then again, she's clearly in love with Squall, so she could just be trying to hit on him again. So I don't know if I should feel good about that or not. At any rate, we have some free time, and so we get to control Selfie and Zell there, and yeah, we are free to go. So let's go ahead and catch up with Cypher, get on the car, and oh, okay, never mind. I guess we're walking. Yeah. Might as well. Alright, so before we head back to Balam, there are a couple things that I want to do here. There are actually a couple of side quests that we can start while we're here, and they all deal with the card game. Now, if you're someone who for some reason doesn't really like the card game, feel free to skip past this point, but there's no reason not to, just because it's pretty easy. You can get some good rewards that are really beneficial early in the game, and yeah, I'm going to be go ahead and starting that here in the next video. But before I do that, you can see this little magazine to the right there, and it is an issue of Timber Maniacs, which is kind of the magazine in this game, and you find a bunch of them throughout the world of Final Fantasy VIII, and it's not a big deal, but it does tie into something a little bit later in the game. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this recording here, but next time we will be taking care of those side quests with the card game, and we'll head back to Garden and figure out how we did on the exam. This has been Marathon Hurdler. I want to thank you guys for checking out my video, and I hope to see you next time.